Ray here. So another installment of the Workbench. So last night as I was out and about looking at different guitars here in the area, ran into one at the local guitar center and found this one. Is the Ibanez. This is the IC400. Picked this up last night. Now from what I understand, they made this guitar, I need to look more into it, I believe throughout the 70s, made the version of this that was, from what I understand, a really, really good guitar. I honestly haven't come across too many of them from the 70s, but from what I gather, they have a very kind of Gibson-esque type of feel to them and tone. This bad boy here was made in Korea. I need to check the date. They're a little bit different than the way that the previous Ibanez ICs were made back then, and I'm trying to remember what the name was. I'll think of it here in a second. Yeah, definitely going to check into this one here, clean it up. It's got some strings on it, of course, that are kind of janky, so we'll get some new NYXLs on this thing, a little bit fatter tune here, string on here to see how it sounds. I'm going to go through it and clean it up and see what we can find on this. As we're getting a little closer to our Ibanez IC400 here, you can see as we get down in here, it's got the AH1 and the AH2 pickups, and if memory serves correctly, these were created, I believe, in the 90s sometime. I want to say 94, maybe after, maybe 95 or 6. I'm not positive. Can't remember much about the neck, but I believe the bridge was an Alnico magnet. I'll have to double check on that one as I go through. These guitars were made from, I believe, 2004 to 2007, made in Korea, and you can get them pretty cheap from what I'm seeing. This one here I picked up really cheap. I think I picked this up last night for about $250. You know the guy there, and he usually gives me pretty good deals. Gave me a pack of these NYXLs. I'm always buying strings and stuff. Mahogany body, maple neck. Here it's got Grover tuners on it, which I thought were pretty nice. I don't think this thing really got a whole heck of a lot of, you know, as I'm looking down at the frets, I didn't see, I need to get in there myself. This is the first real look I'm having of it, but they don't look like they've had a ton of play. Unfortunately, the body did receive, this guy, whoever owned it before me, was really hard on it, and unfortunately, I don't want to say really hard on it, but looks like he dropped it. I know so much about Ibanez. This is one of the guitars I don't know a whole lot about Ibanez. More into, you know, the Fenders, Les Pauls, PRSs. I know more about those. Ibanez, don't know a ton about. So we're going to dive into this thing and see what we can find. I'm going to go ahead and cut these strings off. These strings looking like they've been on here for a while. Kind of dug into it. You can see that they're kind of really pushing, kind of really in here to the nut, and these strings have probably been on this guitar for a while. And judging, you know, it has kind of, gonna sound kind of funny, kind of has that been sitting for a while stench to it. I have a feeling this guitar has been sitting just in its case for a while. Again, as I feel the frets, they don't feel like they have any wear. I don't know if this, I mean, this thing feels like it's barely been played, and just kind of giving it a good look. I mean, nothing, no real wear marks, but it just feels, it looks like it's been sitting for a long time. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut these bad boys off here and see what we can find out. These strings feel like they're junk. I mean, little pieces of rust, nasty. So we're gonna slap on a pair of those NYXLs and see how it turns out. Have them, I don't know if you can see this here, but basically what I like to do is I'll take the little clippers and just pull it around and then pull it out. And so I don't know, you know, a lot of times you put your fingers in there and you start pulling and it snaps back and stabs you in the finger. What's real nice about this is you just grab, once you're done with the little cutters, just as I go ahead and swing this thing and hit me in the eye because I've got too much play on it, just go ahead and pull it like that, and that way you don't have to get your fingers in there. Got the back open up here, and I've kind of come in a little bit here to kind of take a look around and see what I can find. It looks like everything is pretty good inside here. I noticed yesterday when I was you know, adjusting the volumes and checking things out, I heard a little bit of a slight, you know, beginning to hear that little crackle sound. So I'm gonna hit this up with a little of my G100 here that you know I love to use so much. So got that ready. So I'm gonna hit that, you know, in here a little bit and see if I can't maybe bust out some of that scratchy stuff without having to go in and replace any of the pots or anything. So we'll give that a try. But everything else inside looks really clean. Doesn't look like this has literally ever been opened before. When it comes to cleaning your fretboard, there's a lot of different discussions and a lot of theories on what you should use out there. I definitely don't get in the middle of any of those discussions. Scott Grove, I believe he feels that water, just put water on it and clean it up, that should work. Will from Will's Easy Guitar, I believe he uses, what was the name of the type of oil that he said, but you know, he uses a different type of oil. I use some of the basics. I mean, I know people are gonna, you know, chastise me for using it, but I use a lot of the Gibson or Dunlop products. I find they work well on all my guitars for years and don't have any problems. The key to it is you know, moderation. I think when you use the products, I use this. I also use the F1 oil. I don't use it too often, a couple times a year at the max. I put it on and take it right off. I don't let it sit and soak and get into everything. I let it sit just for a second, just for a little bit to let it get into the wood and then wipe it down. But, you know, as far as what works for you, use what works for you. I mean, before I really start getting in and cleaning the fretboard, I like to just kind of take a clean rag and get in and kind of start rubbing on the fretboard to kind of see what I'm working with. This is off of just a couple of the top frets. So I'm not sure what they used to clean this, whoever owned this before, but it definitely had a residue that would collect dust and dirt and stuff. So it's nasty, whatever it is. I don't know if it was how well it was kept. I mean, it didn't have piles of dirt and dust on it when I picked it up, which I believe it was kept in its case. But just a good example of, there are products out there that apparently will leave this stuff on your, I mean, that's 2 frets. I grabbed the top 2 frets and you can see the schmutz that's on this thing already. So, okay, I'm going over the frets right now and I'm scrubbing the frets with my little pad here, my little polish pad thing, whatever they call these things. You know what? I got this out of my Gibson set a while ago. I can't find these things. I guess I have to buy a whole nother set to get these. I've had this thing for like 3 or 4 years. I know that's like way too long, but I still get some use out of it. So the fretboard. So I am of the assumption this guitar, after polishing it, it has barely any lines, any scratches from where the pick hits the body of the guitar. I have a feeling this guitar was bought and sat in a closet somewhere. Wow. So now I am going to use some of my F1 oil and oil the fretboard. I don't put too much on. I put just a little bit. I put it on, get on the whole board, let it sit for a second, and then wipe it off. Wipe it off good. Make sure it doesn't stand too long. Just enough to make sure you're protecting your board. We don't want to soak it. We clean the heck out of our fretboard here, and you know, I put some oil on it there, and it just, as I was saying earlier, it just really needed some good maintenance here. So got that done, polished up the frets nicely, cleaned it up, and so now I'm putting on a set of Ibanez NYXLs. These are the 10 through 52s. Sometimes I'll use 10 through the 46s, I believe they're 46. Let's see, I think a pack around here somewhere. The 10 through, yeah, these bad boys here. The 10 through, actually I've got a few different ones that I've used. These are the 10 through 52s, the ones I'm putting on now. On my Gibsons, my Les Pauls, a lot of times I'll use the 10 through 46. On my Explorer, I used 11 through 56, was actually bigger than the one I'm using on here. That's pretty good, helpful for the lower drop tunings, B, A, and you know, some even go up to 70. I don't go. I think B is probably as low as I go. A, and I just don't really have the need to go that low. C perhaps, but yeah, we're gonna give these 10 to 52s a try. So let's see how these things go. Okay, so we adjusted the neck relief, and this thing did something that I haven't seen in quite a long time. And maybe, I don't know if it's specific with the Ibanez or if I just had one of those days, but something a technician taught me years ago is that sometimes neck relief will have kind of this delayed response. And I know all guitars do not fully reach their full relief or you know, if you're tightening or loosening, it does take a little while. Some even say give it an hour, if you will, for it to fully set where it needs to be. I guess I've been kind of spoiled with Gibsons and Fenders and PRS and some of the guitars where the relief is, you know, your tightening or loosening is actually pretty quick, almost instantaneous. In this situation, I did it, and I noticed there was quite a large gap. As you can remember, this thing's been sitting for a while. For some reason, it just developed this huge gap. And so I tried to tighten it up, and it was barely going. I mean, we're talking several different times. And all of a sudden, at once, it was just tight as could be. I mean, like, you know, just, it was as if I was, you know, it just tightened it as far as it would go, kind of thing. So I had to go back, and as I was going back, it did the same thing. It would do this slow release. It wasn't this instantaneous thing. So piece of advice is just sometimes, you know, if you're doing a measurement, it may not come as fast as you'd like. So that was a good reminder for me. So we're in good set now. We're at 0.01. Checked it out, and I remember I've got that fatter string on here, so just a little bit above, just so I don't get the string buzz. So we're in good shape now. Everything else has been tested, run. I ran through the pickups, made sure everything was good. Went through my volume and tone pots. You guys know, as I mentioned before, I love my G100. I sprayed through to make sure to do that as well. Checked the three-way switch. Everything's looking good, and so we are in good shape to test it now.